because it leads us down this dangerous path where that becomes the God that we serve instead of the one true God. It becomes an idol in our lives. And it becomes about seeking comfort and happiness and joy. And how can I get all this stuff and be more happy? And it's crazy, isn't it? Because all that stuff, does it really make you happy? That's how you can know it's a false God. I mean, how many of you have ever said, man, if I could just get that thing, my life would be complete? Be honest, how many of you have ever said that? Good. A few honest people here, that's good. Because I think we all have. If I could just get that thing, or whether we physically said it or not, we all have those dreams. If we could just get to this point, our lives would be complete. We would be happy. Let me ask another question. How many of you got to that point and were actually happy and content and said, I'm done, I'm complete, my life's complete? How many of you ever got there? I don't see anybody hands. Do you realize what that is? I mean, we laugh and that's funny and that's a joke, but do you realize what that should tell us? That you are pursuing a false God because you're pursuing ultimate happiness and joy in life. I'm very serious about this. Ultimate, and I'm guilty of it too, so I'm not trying to preach down at you. Don't get that. I'm guilty of it too, all the time. But do you realize, do you get that? That's what false gods do. They call our attention and pull us and say, seek me, seek me, seek me. And then we get there and go, oh, that's not enough. Now you got to seek this thing. And look at what it's done to our lives. I'm going on a tangent here. I'm sorry, but I'm going to go with it. Look what it's done to our lives. We're over our heads in debt, aren't we? For what? We're working 80 hours a week at work just trying to pay all the bills and keep up with all the credit cards and debt and all this stuff, aren't we? Because we're pursuing, we want more. Well, we got to that point, we bought that thing and put that on the credit card, and it wasn't a big deal because we were going to pay it off right away. But then we got that thing, and it didn't really make us happy, and we saw this thing that we needed too. And so, we'll put that on the credit card too. Before you know it, that happens time and time and time again, and now you're buried alive in what was supposed to make you happy. You're not experiencing life, you're experiencing death. You're dying, you're drowning in this world that you and your false God have created for yourself. And God is over here saying, don't you get it? Don't you get it? That's not going to make you happy. It may seem like it, and the American dream values that you've bought into since childhood may teach you that, but anybody who's been there before you, you know some of the biggest suicide rates are among people who have so much, some of the richest people in the world. Why is that? Because they're so alone and so empty. And all this stuff, I gave my entire life for seeking all this stuff and thought it was going to make me happy. And it didn't. And now I'm here at the end of the road, nearing the end of the road, and I have nothing. And all I'm experiencing is death, and I just want to end it. That's the reality of that road. Everybody that goes down that road, they'll tell you the same thing. Yeah, the stuff is great for a minute, isn't it? It's great for the here and now, and man, this is cool. But that wears off real fast. And it leaves us in this pile of brokenness. And Jesus is over, don't you get it? This is the way. Again, not that stuff is necessarily bad. It's okay. You can afford stuff and have stuff, but this is the path to life. But I think it's interesting. He says, look, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. And this is a hard thing to do, and I'm just going to throw it out there, and some of you may choose to do it, some of you may not. But it's really interesting. I read this once and took this and thought, it'd be fascinating to look and say, if that's a reality, let me look at where my treasure is. And so take on a piece of paper and actually chart out, where do I spend my money? Now, all of us have bills to pay and stuff. But after all my bills and pay their stuff, where do I spend my money? I think if you actually went through this exercise, you'd be amazed. And according to Jesus, where your treasure is, where you're spending all that time and money, that's where your heart is. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? But we're talking about comfort today, so why not talk about stuff that's uncomfortable? Let me just say this. It's equally interesting to me, I think, how this passage ends. Mark chapter 10, with Jesus talking to his disciples. He says this, how difficult it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Anybody else go, what? His disciples did. They went, what? Who then can be saved? Like, Nobody can. It's physically impossible for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, so you're pretty much saying nobody can be saved then? Is that what you're saying, Jesus? And Jesus responds this way and says, with man, this is impossible, but with God, anything is impossible. Now, don't miss what he's saying here. He's not saying that God can take a camel and make it mini and fit it through an eye of a needle, and so God's going to do a miracle. But in essence, I think what Jesus is trying to get at here is that no one in their right mind, left to their own humanity, chooses the cross. That is not natural. That's not part of our sinful human nature, is it? We don't, left to ourselves, we don't choose the cross. We all want comfort, happiness, and success in life. It's this thing that we're going to struggle with till the day we die. If you think you're just going to get out of this all of a sudden and life is going to... No, till the day we die, we're always going to have this part of us that's going to want to seek comfort, happiness, and success, and stuff and more. And it's all about me. We all want to live curled up on the couch with the Snuggie on because it feels good. We like it. It feels good. But here's what I think Jesus is saying. When God gets a hold of your heart, when he truly gets a hold of your heart, everything changes. I think what Jesus is saying with, man, this is impossible, but only God can give you the faith and the courage and the strength to intentionally pursue less comfort. I mean, I don't know if you're sitting here and I think about it even as I speak these words and go, really? Really? I mean, in my own humanity, I go, really? Does that sound like an exciting life to intentionally pursue less comfort? It doesn't make sense, does it? But when God gets your hold of your heart, everything changes. Your priorities change, and suddenly you realize, man, there's a whole nother world out there. There's a whole nother way to live my life that, as Jesus describes it, leads to this abundant life. It leads to everything that we really want when we're pursuing all this stuff. It leads to that ultimate fulfillment that we want to experience. But we're totally going the wrong way about getting it. Only God can change your heart in such a way that you'll intentionally pick up your cross on a daily basis and follow Jesus. In the results, you'll see the world changed forever. I feel like we've only begun to scratch the surface of this topic and the implications that it has for our lives. I mean, we haven't even really begun to talk about what does this mean for me and how do I live this out. There's so much more that we could and probably should talk about. But I also truly believe that if God gets a hold of your heart in this area, that I don't have to try to come up with ideas of how you can put this into practice. Because that's not really what this is about, is it? It's not really about, let me get a list of stuff I can do and check it off so that I can be okay with God. I mean, if that's the goal, we've totally missed the point of what we're talking about this morning. It's about having our hearts so captured by God. And I think if we get to that place, I don't have to come up with a list for you. You'll be overflowing with ideas of, man, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. And so as we close today, I want to recognize that idea, and I'm intentionally not giving you a lot of hands-on stuff. But I do want to do something really practical and hands-on, and I want to invite you to stand. And recognizing that only God can do this in you, I just want to pray for you this morning. And I want to pray that God would radically get a hold of your heart in such a way that it would cause you to live your life differently, that it would cause you to choose the cross, that it would cause you to choose to take off the Snuggie, metaphorically speaking, to set it aside and go, you know what? It's hard and it's uncomfortable, but man, is it ever worth it. And I think you'll experience that if you begin to live your life in this way and surrender and follow God's plan. Sure, it's going to be hard. Sure, there'll be moments of suffering. But the life and the joy and the happiness that you've always been longing for, I think you'll experience it to the fullest.